Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is a very special day, but if you just want to skip to the audio reading for today, I'm going to have the timestamp below on the video, so you can just skip ahead. But I wanted to make an announcement. I am releasing a book. I'm going to be releasing a book April 7th, and the name of the book is A Healer for Kasate. I'll have a picture up there because I think it's going to be backwards. I'll have a picture right here. But this is the last book in my Silver Foxes series that I've been writing for close to 20 years now. And I thought that the last three books would be the finale, but I had one more story to tell. So I'm just going to try and do this last book up with great pomp and circumstance. So if you want to join me on April 7th, which is a Sunday, I'm going to have a launch party. I'm going to have it on DeviantArt. I'll have the link to where it's going to be right here. And we're just going to have Q&As, there'll be giveaways, there'll be all sorts of fun stuff. So if you want to stop on by, please do. I'll probably give more information. I don't know, maybe. Maybe I'll make an announcement or a video or something. But I think that's it actually. So right now I'm going to read the first chapter of this new book. So if you like it, pre-orders will be available starting today, March 1st. So next week, I think I'll go back to releasing reads of Dragon's Wish and Team Captain Alex. And when I'm finished reading the whole thing chapter by chapter, I plan to put it all into one big video so you can like it if you like that. So anyways, here's chapter 1 from A Healer for Kasate. I hope you enjoy it.
Chapter 1. It was a warm day on Kasate. A gentle ocean-scented breeze fluttered the curtains of the high priest's office and tousled Skitter's brown hair and fur. Like all the buildings and homes on Kasate, the office had been built on a wooden platform among the boughs of the trees growing all over the island. It had been constructed with thick wooden walls, but the open windows let in light and breeze. When the wind blew, a constant soothing roar rustled through the trees. The sound remained a constant fixture all over the island, whether one lived amongst the trees or below amidst the twisted roots. The high priest's office was no exception, and often Skitter found himself closing his eyes to listen to the sounds of his beloved island. He resisted the urge to do just that, and instead ran his hand over his hair, flicked his fluffy squirrel tail, and tapped his pencil on the anatomy book laying open on the desk in front of him. He had been staring at a diagram of the muscular structure of a mole for several minutes now, the latest in a string of figures he had been trying to memorize. As the high priest of the Duckling Archipelago, Skitter should have also assumed the role of the chief healer. As such, he had been studying medicine since he was 13 years old. 6 years later, he was still studying, still trying to grasp the underlying concept of being a healer, still struggling to understand any of it. But it was all right. It took a lot of information to be a healer after all. If he kept at it, all this gobbledygook would make sense eventually. At least, that's what he told himself. With a sigh, he lifted his eyes to the window. From its vantage point at the top of one of the highest trees on the island, Kasate stretched out beneath him. He spied tree houses hidden in the leaves, wooden walkways woven in and out of the branches, squirrels and other flyers gliding between the trees, and ground-top animals walking along the beach below. Looking out further, he spotted the ocean stretching into the distance, the sun sparkling off the waves. Skitter rose out of his chair, making it scrape against the wooden floor, and crossed the room to get a better look at the horizon. Under normal circumstances, he would have launched himself out of the window and taken a glide across the island, watching his fellow Kasatians enjoy the day. As a flying squirrel, and one who had been taught far flight from a young age, he could spend hours in the air, circling the island and keeping a loving eye on his people. They had no idea how many times he had taken to the air to bless each and every one of them while speaking to Cadiel. But today was different. Instead of watching his island and its people, his gaze wandered to the vast ocean and to the horizon. Something about the sea had captured his attention lately, awoken a strange longing in him he didn't understand. He loved his island and never wanted to leave, but a growing desire to cross the waters and travel to the lands beyond struck him. He wanted to see other people and other places, like Dramarad, the Isle de las Lieres, or Expermia, especially Expermia, for within the borders of that country lived his very best friend Cathra. He flicked his tail even as he thought of her, and a smile came to his face unbidden. He hadn't seen her for 4 years or so, but they wrote to each other often. At first he had been embarrassed by the sight of his letters. They had been dozens of pages long, while hers barely topped one. After he had written his first letter, He had tried to edit them down to what Molly called a manageable read, but soon he stopped bothering about it. He just had too much to say to her. Soon after, her letters became longer and longer, until they were just about the length of his. They wrote to each other about everything. He told her things he could never bear to let anyone else know. She never chastised him or made him feel weird. In fact, she often helped him sort out what he was thinking or feeling, sometimes even pointing out areas where Skidder didn't realize he had fallen short. What he wouldn't give to talk to face or to glide with her across the island. I should finish my letter. Skidder turned to the desk where a half-finished message lay in his drawer awaiting completion. He worked on it between his duties, which didn't leave him as much time to write as he wanted. He took a step towards his desk and halted. I shouldn't. If I start now, I won't stop. I can't get distracted. I have to study. His eyes flicked to his books, and he turned up his nose. Writing to Cathra seemed much more appealing to him than studying. To be fair, writing to her was much more appealing than anything else he had to do, barring talking to Cadiel. What do you think she's doing now, Cadiel? Gitter whispered, knowing quite well Cadiel knew exactly what she was doing at the moment. I hope she's okay. Protect her, please. Save her from her enemies. Keep her diligent in her studies, like I should be. He sighed. The thought of Cathal working hard lit a fire underneath him. He'd get back to studying, be as diligent as she was, but in a bit. In a bit. So this is what you do when you're supposed to be studying? Skidder winced. He turned from the window to see his teacher, Dabby, standing at the door with his arms crossed. A gray flying squirrel with a prodigious gut, he nevertheless stood with an authority Skidder hoped to emulate one day. He kept the fur on either side of his mouth long, and used to thread beads on the ends of them, but had abandoned the practice a little after Skidder had taken the oath to become the high priest. These beads are a symbol of honor, he had said when he removed them for the last time. An honor I squandered. For he had been the high priest before Skidder, but had allowed himself to forsake Cadiel's commands. He had since repented and didn't object when Cadiel named Skidder the new high priest. But Skidder still considered Dabbe his teacher. I was studying Dabelo, Skidder said, running his hand over his hair. He added the low suffix his tribe attributed to males older than oneself. If Dabbe had been female, he would have used the Lee suffix. I just took a little break. I would believe you if I didn't catch you staring off into space at every given moment. Dabbe strode into the office. I'm not. Skidder averted his eyes. Not every moment. It's been 6 years, Skidder, Dabbe said, holding his hands behind his back, as he did every time he lectured Skidder. 6 years since you became this tribe's official high priest, and Nartorin's as well. You must take your task seriously. I am! Skidder smacked the anatomy book on his desk. Memorize this book cover to cover. Say it all you like, but unless I see progress, deltoid, trapezius, bicep, triceps. Skidder rattled off all the names of the muscle groups in the diagram he had been studying. When he finished, he flipped the page to a diagram of a squirrel and did the same, then to a diagram of a chipmunk. I've been studying non-stop, Davilo, he said when he had finished. I'm not just daydreaming. I stand corrected. Dabby smiled, a rare thing for Skidder to see directed at him. Perhaps you are taking your studies seriously. So let me ask you this. A 25-year-old female flying squirrel comes to you saying she has a pain in her arm. After an examination, you find no broken bones or sprains. She's otherwise healthy. What is your next step in diagnosing her, and what is your treatment plan? Um, Skidder hissed in a breath. Ask Cadiel what's wrong with her and what I should do to heal her? Dabby's frown returned. Skidder. I'm trying, Dabolo. Skidder plopped back into his chair. I can memorize all these books, but when it comes to practical use, I can't put it together. My mind doesn't work that way. This is literally what a healer does, Skidder. Why do I have to know this stuff anyway? Cadiel tells me what to do, and sometimes he heals the patient himself. If he's going to tell me, why do I have to study so hard? That's not how this works. But why not? Skidder looked at his teacher. It's been working fine this way for 6 years. That is not the order Cadiel has established for this tribe. Skidder shut his mouth. Any other protest would be useless given this information. Still, the question remained buzzing in his mind. The High Chief is the chief healer, Dabby went on. That is the order Cadiel has established. I know, Skidder let his ears fall. Dabby raised his chin. Therefore, you must know how to practice medicine effectively. I know. Or, Skitter looked up at Dabby. Was there another option? Or, marry someone who does. Skitter rolled his eyes. Dabby low. I'm serious, Skitter. You are of the age of marriage, and there are several talented young ladies on this island who have just or will soon graduate as healers. Properly trained, they will make for wonderful chiefs. Dabby straightened his collar as a smirk crossed his lips. I trained some of them myself. No one on this island is going to want to marry me. Skitter crossed over to the window again. Instead of looking out at the ocean, he let his eyes settle in amongst the trees, where he spotted two squirrel girls, healers by the look of their outer cloaks. They glanced at his window and snickered together. When he waved to show that he saw them, they swung around and scurried off, whispering to each other. Everyone, especially the girls, only see me as a weird orphan kid who came out of nowhere, sees creepy visions, causes troubles, and talks Cadiel way too much. Tabby opened his mouth to counter, but shut it. After a moment of silence, he cleared his throat. If that's the case, you need to apply yourself. This island cannot be without a chief healer for much longer. I can be a chief healer without hurting my brain. Cadiel tells me what to do. He always has. Isn't that the same thing? Skitter. Isn't it, though? Tabby rolled his eyes. Have you spoken to Cadiel about your view of what a chief healer should be? Skitter started. Yeah, sort of. He scratched the back of his head. And? Skitter sank into his chair. He said, I have established a certain order, and I would have you follow it. That's all. There you go. That doesn't mean I have to learn medicine, does it? Not if he tells me what to do anyway. Dabby clenched his teeth, hissing in a breath. You are a stubborn one, you know that? Skitter gave Dabby a smile and a shrug. In the absence of a direct word from Cadiel, we must continue in the way he has told us previously. Wouldn't you agree? Yes, Skitter said, moving the book back in front of him. With a deep breath, he rested his cheek in his hand and prepared to start studying again. Dabby placed a hand on the top of the book. Perhaps a practical lesson will help break up the monotony. It's time we visited the House of Healing. Watch me and learn the joys of medicine. Yes, sir, Dabelo. Skitter jumped to his feet, tail flicking. Not that he was enthused about going to the House of Healing, but anything would be better than staring at that boring book, trying to cram as many concepts in his mind as possible, all the while wondering why he should.